Welcome back. Evergrande Group, one of the largest Chinese real estate companies, just filed for bankruptcy. This is being taken as a sign of deeper problems right now hitting the Chinese economy. It appears now the United States is trying to detach itself from China. And here to speak with us about it is Antonio Graceffo, Epoch Times contributor and author of Beyond the Belt and Road, China's Global Economic Expansion. Hey, Antonio Graceffo, thanks for being on Crossroads.
Hey, really good to be here again.
So, Antonio, you and I were talking for a good while. We kind of saw the writing on the wall with what's happening in China right now. Let's start with Evergrande, this big Chinese real estate company just filed for bankruptcy. What does that mean? Why does this matter?
Well, real estate makes up about 20 to 30% of the Chinese economy directly. But if we go indirectly, in other words, other companies and industries that sell to the real estate sector or depend on it, it could be 30, 40%. So when that sector crashes, that is pretty serious.
Well, ahead of COVID, there were a lot of rumors that the Chinese real estate market was collapsing. I mean, I was saying on my show, hey, it looks like the Chinese economy is about to collapse. Then COVID, of course, takes place. They exported around the world. I'm curious now, going back to pre-COVID, these disasters were looming. What was happening back then?
Well, pre-COVID, you just had this debt that was just building and building and building in the real estate sector. The thing about China, though, is that the only thing that people had that they could invest in for many, many years was real estate. And a lot of people don't understand stocks and bonds, or they don't trust, the market. So they would put all their money into real estate. And the other thing about Chinese people, culturally or historically, when the economy gets bad or they're threatened with a war or a crisis, they put their money into real estate because they feel that it's safe. So that kept the real estate sector afloat, although it was, by all practical, purposes and intents, it really was bankrupt, but they were keeping it afloat.
Interesting. Well, and I've seen that too. I've heard from people, it's like because of the famines and the disasters they've been through, they tend to not spend a lot. Maybe it's changing now, but for the most part, people tend to save money there. And it's interesting that they tend to put the money into hard assets, which is, back when they were trying to get a lot of money out of China. That's why you have people coming here and buying just houses with, straight cash. And a lot of people are like, who are these Chinese nationals buying real estate in America with straight cash? They're trying to get their money into hard assets. But what does it mean now when that's imploding in China? You said that the economy is about 40% real estate if you count everything else. I know another big part of it is manufacturing. Both of those are destabilizing right now. On the manufacturing side, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. If we said the two pillars of the Chinese economy are real estate and then manufacturing and exports, and manufacturing is down. Factory activity is down. Producer managers index is down. Factory gate prices are down. Consumption in China is down. FDI is down, and the reason why foreign direct investment is down, and the reason why that is important for manufacturing is that somewhere on the order of 30 to 40% of China's total exports are done by foreign companies or foreign invested companies in China. So when we see foreign direct investment decrease in China, it also means we're going to see manufacturing decreasing in China.
Well, and a big question people are going to ask is, how is it that the real estate market is collapsing there? And what's going on with manufacturing and foreign direct investment? What is causing these issues with their economy?
So two separate but related issues. So on the manufacturing side, you have, number one, you've had a slew of the counterintelligence law, the intelligence law, the foreign relations law, all of which have increased the risk of investing in China. So foreign companies are less likely to invest. They don't want to invest. Had everything gone back to normal this year, I think you still would have seen fewer foreign arrivals in China, just because COVID scared a lot of people. That people think now, well, if I'm going to accept a job overseas, I could get locked in some foreign country, or I could get locked in China, if they have another COVID type emergency. And So I think arrivals would have been down anyway, but these laws have made it so dangerous to invest in China that a lot of the managers didn't go back. A lot of companies have moved their foreign employees out of China. Arrivals in the first quarter of the year would normally have been 3.5 million. It's down to 53,000. So, I mean, we're talking just a dramatic drop in investment, in manufacturing, in factory activity, foreign talent coming to China. This stuff is all down. I mean, we're talking, 60% in some places and more.
Well,
And
there's
then,
the writing was.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
and
go ahead.
sorry, and then the other part of the question you asked me was the real estate. Why is the real estate suddenly imploding? Because we've been reporting for years that they have this huge bubble building. The real estate, if you picture it like kind of a Ponzi scheme, which is the um, the builders, the building companies are taking in money from investors. They're using that money to build the next project. And they're basically using all of the money to build the next project, and of course with debt and everything like that. So now they don't have money to complete the first project. Well, where do they get money to complete the first project? Well, they get it by selling the third project. And then they used all that money to, start the fourth project. And how do they build the third one? Oh, they get money for the fifth project. And as long as money keeps flowing in, it works. When money stops coming in, suddenly the whole thing unravels. And that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, which is why they do these huge mega projects and ghost cities and all that. And then, they call them
Exactly.
tofu buildings. They cut corners on everything as well. When it comes to the market as well, I mean, the writing was on the wall. You and I, of course, were talking about this pretty early on. The writing was on the wall. And then, as you mentioned, it was a bubble, right? It was bound to burst. But even on what happened with, for example, the way the CCP was treating foreigners, there were, for example, videos during COVID lockdowns of foreigners getting locked in their buildings and so on. People were trying to protest. They were getting arrested. The message the CCP was sending, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're here, you're at our mercy, essentially. We even have the U.S. now putting travel warnings on China. And it seems that this is like a global thing now.
Yes.
The big question is, what does all this mean for the Chinese economy overall? Because, I mean, we hear about economic crisis everywhere right now. Like, what does this mean for the Chinese economy? And is it worse than what we're seeing with economic problems elsewhere? Where is it heading?
Yeah, it's much worse than problems everywhere else because problems everywhere else are decreasing demand in general because of inflation and rising unemployment. People can't afford to buy as many things, which would have decreased demand from China. But there is still demand for products. But now those products are going to be manufactured someplace other than China. The EU, the US, we're all moving our factories out, or companies are doing their next investment is not in China, or their factory expansion is not in China. It's outside of China. The other thing is that China's labor costs have been rising, for years. And although China really is poor relative to the fact that it is the second largest economy, when the U.S. and Britain were the largest economies, well, the citizens also had the highest standards of living. But China's the number two economy, and 30% of rural Chinese still don't have indoor plumbing. And the average salary in China is $12,000 a year, but that's the per capita GDP. That's not actually how the salaries are dispersed among the people. So you're looking at people that are still earning like $10 a day, right? So on the one hand, they've been providing this very low standard of living to their citizens. At the same time, this is still much higher than the cost of manufacturing in Indonesia or Vietnam or Thailand. And the reason that China worked, although it was more expensive, was because you had this domestic market. So if you're Nike, you might actually be able to make your shoes cheaper in Vietnam than in China. But if you made them in China, you could also sell them in China. So this gave you this other revenue stream that offset all the other costs. Well, now Chinese people, number one, they're not buying anything. They're just, consumption is way down. There's a push towards nationalism, so they're not buying foreign brands anymore. A lot of foreign brands are just leaving China completely, shutting down their flagship stores and things like that. So I do not see recovery. If there's no incentive for foreign companies to invest, they will not invest.